Hi, I'm Rhonda Chrimes. I'm a life and leadership coach supporting everyday people just like you to curiously explore and rework your everyday stories and then assist you to create lasting changes that will benefit you moving forward every day. And today, let's talk about the next step in reviewing the 2010s. The new year is merely 19 days away, and that will also sound in the beginning of a new decade. How amazing is that? Do you remember when we switched from 1999 to 2000? The naughties? The Y2K bug? The hysteria around that? I remember changing the date on my computer to a few months before. I figured if something bad was going to happen, the big corporations would find a fix pretty quickly, and in all reality, I didn't actually care what date my computer thought it was. According to Forbes.com, in the article by Bayan Khosravi, the 2020s are almost here. What will this highly anticipated decade bring for startups? He says, the 2000s were the era of the search engine. Google dominated the market. Amazon gave birth to a new era of e-commerce. And Apple put a computer in everyone's hand with the iPhone. Then we went from the naughties to the teenies as 2009 clicked over to 2010. And again, in the same Forbes article, Khosravi recalls, in the 2010s, we were introduced to social media and the sharing economy. Facebook became a social phenomenon, and Uber and Airbnb transformed how we travel. So, just by looking back at the technology area alone, the changes made in a decade can be quite striking and in many cases unrelenting. We've all heard the commonly used sayings, time marches on, or time waits for no man. And while both of these ring true, it doesn't mean that we as individuals must blindly follow to keep up, or with the emerging trends, or to stubbornly keep going and doing our own same thing over and over and expecting our lives to change dramatically. We have the absolutely unique ability as humans to reflect, and that is what we're going to continue to do in this next session, prompted by the Marie Forleo's Decade in Review. Last time in section 1, we looked at identifying what I'm proud of in the last 10 years, and then singling out what was most important and why. We went on to section 2 to really find the wisdom depicted in my learnings, and then uncovering the most important lessons and why they matter. These were the first steps in looking back, and the answers could be gleaned from the old journals, diaries, photos, and conversations with your friends and families. This time we're going to cover just one section, but it's a pretty big one. So get comfortable with your journal and your pens. Are you ready to curiously explore section 3? What are you willing to let go of? So under that header, you're going to create 3 lists. The first subheader is old projects and goals. Now, those of you who know me will also know I'm not big on the goal word, but I do understand there is a time and a place for its usage, both in speech and action. And that is another topic for another time though. So, back to the matter at hand. Are there any projects that you have been meaning to get around to doing, but you just haven't actually made time for? Write them all down. Big and small, nothing is right or wrong. It's all just about reflecting and capturing information at this stage. Do you have any, I should do this, types of goals that you just keep putting off for all kinds of reasons? What about expectations of others that are just not true to your heart's desires? Get writing. This is important stuff. But let me tell you what this exercise isn't, though. It isn't a guilt trip. It isn't time to berate yourself as useless for not having done all this stuff. It's just gathering intel, collecting data to be used for your own benefit down the track. The next list header is resentments, anger, and upsets. Are there any resentments or upsets you've been hanging on to? What about any old emotional baggage or suppressed anger, sadness, bitterness, guilt or shame that needs releasing? Write them all down. Even if you don't know how to release them yet, naming them and acknowledging them is the first step. Next is to ask yourself, is there anyone you need to forgive? This includes yourself as well. No one is perfect, and we've all done things we aren't proud of on varying scales of significance to ourselves and others. Again, just write them down without too much harsh judgment. The last list header is limiting beliefs or crappy old stories. In this list, you're going to ask, what limiting beliefs have you been carting around for the last 10 years? What are the crappy old stories you've been telling yourself that no longer serve you? What do you hear yourself saying that is holding you back from your biggest dreams or aspirations? What is it that tells you you're not enough? Not enough to do or say or have or hold? Write down all the stuff that is stopping you from achieving or experiencing what is held deeply within your heart. Use this opportunity to get all the negative thoughts out in the open, out of your head and onto paper. Do this now so they don't continue to control you for the next 10 years too. Okay, so you've purged your brain and bared your soul. Now, what do you do with these lists? So you're going to go back over each of the lists and you're going to ask yourself these next 4 questions. What are the most important things to let go of? That's number 1. And circle those now. Number 2 is, why is it so vital you let these things go now? Number 3, what have these goals, resentments, or limiting beliefs cost you over the last decade? Are there any experiences or achievements that you haven't experienced as a result of holding on to those? That's the last one, number 4. Once you've done all of this, you've laid the groundwork for the last section, which we'll talk more about next week. Marie Forleo puts this beautifully. Your time matters. By doing this reflective work, you're setting yourself up to have the best decade ever. Keep going and honour that wisdom within. Now, I also know that doing reflective work can bring up some stuff that you may struggle to deal with. Please, 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 please understand this sort of practice is not designed to make you relive trauma or past hurts, although it can do that. It's also not about laying blame or accusations at the feet of anyone, including yourself, although it can do that too. So if you've dug up some stuff that isn't comfortable, just try sitting with it for a while. Really feel feel into the emotions it conjures up. Try and identify what's underneath those emotions. Get really curious and witness yourself going through this process. Sometimes the hard bit is the fear that going over them may make things worse. It trawls up stuff long since buried. That making change is scary. So try, if you can, to recognize that this is your unconscious mind working on autopilot, endeavouring in its own way to keep you safe. It's also good to note here that often what we feel most resistance to is that which will provide the greater benefit, since the resistance is a sign that the topic is a real issue for you. If at any time you feel you'd like some support, or perhaps even be guided through this process personally, I would be honoured to support you to curiously explore and offer you some additional really powerful tools to help you work your own way through them. If your now is not the picture you've painted for yourself, and you'd like to have a chat about any of this, or maybe something completely different that you intuitively know or feel isn't letting your true colours shine through, then please do get in touch with me. You can do it really easily. Just leave me a comment, send me a private message, drop me an email, or choose a time to call on my Calendly page. Much love until next week.